Hello and welcome to another episode of Page Burners. We're working our way through the Malazan books by Steven Erikson and Ian Esselmont in publication order. We're currently on House of Chains. We're discussing chapters 3 and 4 today. We work our way through this book, or any book that we're reading, approximately 100 pages every week from whatever is typically the longest English edition that we can find. If you'd like to read along with us, I believe we're reading the next 2 chapters next week. As soon as I finish frantically typing and pulling up my schedule that I posted, which I should really do before we start recording. Shannon, do you know what we're reading next week?
Yeah, 5, 6, and 7.
Okay, 5, 6, and 7 for next week. Thank you, Shannon. So I guess we'll pass along to Shannon for the introductions and what we are most excited to discuss this week.
My name's Shannon, and I am most excited to probably talk about either Karsa on the boat or the Keeper from the end of chapter 3. So, Steve?
Yeah, I'm Steve from Page Chewing, and sorry I wasn't here last week. I was ill, but I'm happy to be here this week. I love this book. I love the focus on Karsa and his journey. I think what I'm most excited to talk about this week is probably just Karsa's journey as a character from the beginning of the book when we meet him and now. Even, of course, there's more book to go, but just even the journey he's taken in the last 4 chapters has been pretty dramatic.
Yeah, I think I'm also kind of a Karsa fan. Not the person, but the character. I think I specifically want to get into the nitty-gritties of the dialogue between Karsa and Torvald Norm at the beginning of chapter 4 about, I think, the power of words. Essentially, I think is a decent summary of what they talk about. And Karsa hates words, so how do those two play together? So,
Too many words.
yeah. So I think, Steve, you did say a few times that this was one of your favorite sections and you missed last week's discussion. So do you want to tell us where you're at with this book so far?
Yeah, just kind of catching up from last week since I wasn't here, but I love the introduction of Karsa. I think Erikson purposefully makes us dislike him at first, and he suffers a lot in chapter 3. The what he goes through, and he's still, even into the end of chapter 3 into chapter 4, he's still, he thinks certain things are stupid or not worth their time. He's very stubborn, and I think just the world expands. Kind of his worldview expands a lot from where he starts to where he is now, and he starts to see other ways of thinking. And he's still very stubborn, but he does start to his view starts to open, and he starts to open himself a little bit to other ways of thinking. Which the dialogue, I think, the dialogue he has is really funny. I think the first couple of times I read these books, I missed the humor. But I love the dialogue, the back and forth, his stubbornness and his just hard-headedness. I just love the character and just how just how stubborn just how difficult he is, and how he looks down on certain things, and he does start to open up to other ways of thinking.
Yeah, I like that. I think especially in these 2 chapters, we got a lot of a year ago. He wouldn't have thought for a few seconds before cutting this person's head off.
Yeah.
And that was a summary of what he would have done a year ago. Every single time it was chopped his head off probably, but now I'll stop and think about it for a second and maybe decide that it's not strictly necessary. Yeah, so I do love that growth for his character, and definitely the dialogue between Torvald Norm and Karsa in particular was quite quite funny. I think even the brief instances that we got the Malazan soldiers to, those interactions were pretty funny. And I think I agree with you, Steve. I didn't quite notice the humor, or at least it didn't stand out to me that much my first time around. Um, Maybe because I'm like, there's the trying to make sense of it all mode versus like breezing along, knowing what's going to happen mode, in which, like, I guess you notice different things or pay attention to other things besides, okay, I need to like track some things closely so I know what's going on.
Yeah, I think he starts to learn too that, raw strength and power isn't always the strategy to use too. I think he's taught a few lessons and a few broken ribs to
Yeah.
learn that lesson.
Would you characterize the lessons that he gets as lessons in humility? Do you think he has become more humble, or is it a different thing he has learned through
Hmm.
all of this?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if it's humility. It's
Hmm.
more uh, his approach to solving problems and to solving problems with other people and without other people.
Hmm.
He's still very stubborn.
Very stubborn. Yeah, I think he's maybe, it's not, yeah, I agree. I don't know if I characterize it quite as humility. I think it's more that he realized that there's a lot he doesn't know.
Mm.
He's like, I'm gonna acquire enough information so then I can decide how to. It's more of a scientific approach, I think. Like, I'd characterize it more as, okay, like my hypothesis was wrong. I'll go add more data to figure things out, versus like feeling humbled by how much he doesn't know, I don't think. Yeah, it's, which does feel like a flavor of humility, but it's not. Like, I would never attach that word to to Karsa, I don't think. What do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if Carson definitely hasn't learned any humility. I mean, I guess maybe I don't know. I might call it cunning. Like he's a little bit more. Yeah, he knows like you can't just attack something all the time. Though I
Hmm,
do think that is probably still his first reaction to anything.
hmm,
But like when he was on the boat and he decided to pretend to be crazy, I mean that was something that I think early, chapter earlier I couldn't see him doing that.
hmm. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So, where did we start with these chapters? We left off with Karsa enslaved, I think, with Torvald
Mhm.
Nom greeting him, saying, "I missed you." That was sweet. And then after that, I guess, yeah, Karsa was made unconscious, and then he got taped to the mast of a ship, and he just had to be fed and watered
Uh,
by other people. And for someone who hates words, it was the words that Torvald Nom spoke through all of that kept him sane. He had something to latch on to through all of that.
And even through all that torture of not being able to move, of being stuck, he is still just just does not give in. And
No.
yeah.
Oh, which I think you have to love about him, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's, or at least admire, I think, is a good word. Kind of like, is, what's the main character in Berserk? I forget his name.
Oh, guts.
Guts. Kind of like Guts a little bit. I never liked him, but I never stopped admiring his never say die attitude.
He just moves forward.
Yeah, just keep moving forward. Find other ways around the situation. And so he has a few dreams through all of that, where he sees a huge pile of skulls. He sees a lot of chains. I think chains is a very recurring theme that we see through these chapters for a book entitled House of Chains. That makes sense. So one of the dreams in particular was when he's talking to Urugal. There's a few things there I think that we can maybe break down in that scene. Um, One was that Urugal, it turns out, is a very bloodthirsty god or not god that Karsa is following. He seems to care very little for his followers or worshippers and has some ulterior motive for which he needs a lot of dead people, maybe. And I feel like that's a simplification of it, but that's kind of at least like one thing that's going on. He's bloodthirsty for some reason. We don't know. And secondly, the dead people that Karsa seems to be tied to through chains. And then there's like the storm that maybe Karsa called down, maybe he didn't. Like that seemed to be a consequence of the dream, which led them to a completely different warren where we encounter Silanda again. So like I think we also got a lot of events that timed us to where we are relative to the first two books, right? So we know that when Felicin and co went on Silanda, they had the chopped heads and of the Tistandi that was already there, but then all the Tistida were dead. In the oarsmen were dead when they went there, but now they were alive, and Karsa killed them. It turns out. And then I think, well, we'll get to it towards the end, but the rebellion is about to start, which is what it places all of this well before the second book, I think. And also I think someone mentioned that Pale had just fallen.
Yeah.
So somewhere in the middle of the first book as well.
The beginning of this chapter, they mention, while he's in transport is when Pale falls. So that puts us right at the very beginning of Gardens of the Moon.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
mentioned Moonspawn moving, right?
Yeah, to
yeah.
Darujistan. Yeah. Nam says, I wish I could look at it. I wish I was there watching it come to the city. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. They also have a lot of, I guess, Nom also says a lot of things about the people of Darujistan when Karsa asks, is everybody like you? It's like, yeah, we all like to talk things to death. And that's what we'll probably do to the Malazans when they come, like bore them with all our talking. So the dream, Salanda, and then I'm trying to find where I took my notes. Hold on, page 50. So, what else? The what happens next? They end up on Salanda, and then I guess that happens eventually. When they go into this realm, I guess they float around for a few days.
Mhm.
And Karsa kills a catfish, a very large catfish. And
these ships we've seen before, right? I think Russia, I think you mentioned it. These are the same ships as, was it Deadhouse Gates?
yes.
Yeah.
I don't know
Okay.
did we see multiple ships in their house gates? I know we saw one, the Silanda.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that's the only one we saw.
Yeah. So
we learn it's part of maybe a fleet. Who knows?
yeah. Or they were two ships fighting with each other. So one of them, the Silanda, was in battle with the other one, I think. And they saw a lot of dead Tistida in the water because of
Right.
that's where apparently a lot of the fighting took place. So, what else was interesting in these chapters? I think I wrote down that Karsa learns to doubt, which I think the Urugal dream gave us a little bit,
Mhm.
and he feels and then as they're leaving the Salanda, the 7 gods are watching him leave. So there's Tilanamas who show up when Felicin and all are on that ship. Is it these 7 people, or was that different? Was that a different group? These guys seem to be chasing other Tilanamas too, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. I wasn't sure about that either.
Huh. Chapter 3 is yeah. So Karsa keeps hearing Beirut's voice, "Lead me, war leader," which also I think he hears when he goes to uh, in his dream. And did they does someone mention a dream world at some point? I think the Tablor have a dream world, which I think they're discussing what that realm is, right? And Norm and Karsa, and it turns out Karsa says this can't be the Tablor dream world because that's full of fields and whatnot. And then Torvald points out that this has been flooded. And we know that the gods are Dilanimas. I think we know that. The 7 of them. And we know that at the end of Memories of Ice, a dream world is now livable again. Do you think the two things are related?
I'm not sure.
Sure.
I would imagine so, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't gone that far, but
Yeah. It's interesting. I things seem related, but then I'm like somehow unsure about whether that's true.
there's a lot of details to remember. There's
Yeah.
a lot of events that you can tie in together, and you have to remember. You have to try to remember certain things, the amount of people and the certain people who were in certain places at certain times. So it is hard to keep track of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. He he realizes that his father was not wrong to doubt him, and I think he's finally registered that his grandfather was a lying
Yeah.
jerk. Um, but then he doesn't. It was interesting that he didn't fully decide that his father is great. It's like you taunted me and doubted me instead of explaining, which was interesting. But the way Karsa was before, do you think he would have listened to what Sinig said? Wait, is Sinig the yeah, Fark is the grandfather, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It says, "Very well, father. I can see the gleam of satisfaction in your eyes now. But I tell you this, you delivered naught but wounds upon your son, and I have had enough of wounds." So,
Yeah. I was wondering if Karsa, because of his dreams and his visions, if he is somehow like cursed, or is it more of a blessing or like an awakening? Because at the end of chapter 3, the Daru mentions Keeper has the opinion that it isn't safe around you. He says that if you're dragging 1,000 invisible chains behind you, and whatever's on the end of one of those chains is filled with venom. So I wonder if this is a curse or some kind of blessing for Karsa, or if it's kind of what the purpose of his visions and his newfound kind of motivations are.
hmm. The, he probably saw it as a blessing
Yeah.
before that he was Urugal's chosen. But now I feel like he's headed in the direction of he's going where his God is directing him without resistance, but not with the sense of glory he had before. It's more it's a lot more laced with his hatred of being used for any purpose. And so which is interesting because he's also allowing himself to be used. But I think it's with the goal of, let's see where this goes, and then I'll get them. Or yeah, I feel like he does have that thing, like he's still in control of the situation. He's not just giving up and going where his God is sending him. It's with purpose, but I think he has his own purpose, not just what the God has for him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if it's. I know he sees it as in one way, but everyone around him sees him as, because I would imagine if you're around him and he's a has a personality that he does. If you were around him and he has this kind of motivation, he's like a blunt weapon. He just point him in a direction he goes. So I'd imagine in his mind it's purpose, but everyone else around him is. I'd be nervous too. If it was, what I want him to be that motivated, because the way that he resolves problems isn't exactly safe if you're the person sitting next to him all the time.
Yeah. But you could be the person behind him and you'll be safely protected under that sword comes
Behind him, yeah.
swinging your way. All right. What else? Oh, I love it. Torvald Norm, the banter between him and the shipmates, I guess the Malazans, that he could be a claw. and, and if he's a claw, then he won't reveal his purpose to them. And maybe maybe the Otataral Mines is where he needs to end up. I thought that whole bit was quite funny.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the more successful running gags in this book so far.
Yeah.
Um,
So, Shannon, your topic was Karsa on the boat. Did we? I don't think we quite covered all of it. What else did you want to talk about there?
I just thought it was. I mean, I thought it was really interesting. We find this boat that we saw the after effects of this a couple books ago. And we still don't really know what's going on with it. It's why are all these headless guys here? Like, what's going on? So I just thought it was really just interesting. Didn't have too much beyond
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the Tistandi was the second ship a Tistandi ship then, or was it humans? Was that clear?
Think it's humans, but I'm not sure.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't know if we knew, because I thought this ship was just Edor, but all the headless guys were just Andy, right?
Yep. And
So
alive.
and moving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
eyes were moving. Oh, that reminds me. There was this excellent discussion, and I think that sort of pits Karsa over a little bit more off the edge than where he was before. About do you prefer to wait? I have to find the words. I will totally butcher them. But there's something about being blind, like having your eyes covered over. Do you prefer to not be able to see by having your eyes covered over, or like go in with your eyes wide open, like even though that's basically torture in this case, I think. But let me oh, here we go. I think no, not that one. Nope. Blindness curses both sides. I don't. Yeah, I
Was
couldn't
it in
find it.
chapter 3 or chapter 4?
think chapter 3, before they get off that boat and get betrayed like 3 more times by Silga. What else happens in chapter 3? We're somewhere near the end of chapter 3, Carl, if you'd like to tell us what you enjoyed about that chapter. Or, yeah, I guess he's still figuring out his equipment, so we'll do that.
We're professionals, people.
We're professionals. Okay, let's talk about Silgar and Co. then, while I find the blindness quote. So they open a warrant to go to come back to where, I think somewhere close to where Fellison and Co landed, do you think? Or did they end up somewhere else? I think it has to be close, right?
So I was wondering, so the Warrens, because in book 2, they talk about the Warrens being corrupted, or the Warrens, there being kind of a penalty to use Warrens. Is this before those events?
So there were 2 kinds of corruption that I remember from the previous 2 books. In the second book, it was that the Warrens, I think, were all busy with people trying to, like, all the ascendants that wanted to walk the path of hand, so the Warrens were painful. Or I don't know if the Warrens were corrupted for the same reason in both, and I just misread that. But in book 3, uh, Cruel's blood was being poisoned somehow. I think there was the cripple god's poison
Right.
being
Yeah.
leaked into the Warrens, and that made them hard to use. The Jagged Kid is like sort of holding the fort and preventing the poisoning. Although I forget now that I talk about it, the Warrens poison, I think the reasons were
Yes.
different in the 2, but I forget why we started talking about it.
Yeah, what were you asking about, Steve?
When they use a Warren in chapter 3, if it's before or after the corruption, if there'll be some kind of, if this is after the Warrens were corrupted with the by the crippled god in book 3, I think. Just more curiosity
Not
than
sure.
anything. It's
I think it's before. 'Cause I think
okay.
if we're still before Deadhouse Gates, then we're before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Memories of Ice and Deadhouse Gates were in parallel, so I guess maybe Deadhouse Gates, the Warrens were unusable for the poisoning reason too. Maybe. Although I guess it wasn't really mentioned. Okay.
Actually, I think it kind of was with the Tri-Guild trade because they were having a hard time getting through.
Hmm.
So maybe that was a little bit of the thing of whatever was also going on over in Genebacus.
Yeah, I think so. So now, okay, what happened in chapter 4? We have. Oh, come on. I'm going page by page because that's a great way. Oh, Keeper. We never talked about Keeper from chapter 3. So,
Yeah. I found him to be a terribly amusing character, and interesting. Because it does seem like there's a mystery of who is he.
mhm.
Um,
Mysterious, extremely muscled man.
yeah, he lays Karsa flat, so
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah,
he's more than human, or more than napping.
yeah.
There's no fear, or very little
And
fear.
and he's putting together some skeleton, a tall skeleton.
Was it a dinosaur, or would I just make that up?
Yeah, I think so. I thought in this world they'd be a Kachain Chamal, or is it a dinosaur? Are Kachain Chamal that big?
It's a waste of time.
I don't. I don't think we've ever seen a chain that was bigger than, I don't know. How big are they? Smaller than like a horse, right?
Yeah, I guess so. They, yeah, they didn't strike me as being particularly big. that
No.
time. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, they were more or less described like velociraptors, so I just kind of think Jurassic Park and like that size.
Yeah. Seemed really big dinosaurs. I think dragons. That is it a dragon skeleton that he might be putting together?
Oh, I think about that.
No, that could be.
I wondered. I know we talked a little bit about Karsa and the captivity, the chains that he had, and of course the chains as a whole. Kind of, it runs throughout the book. But I wondered if there's do either of you draw parallels without giving spoilers because you both read the series? Do either of you draw parallels between what Karsa experiences in chapter 3 versus the demon that we meet earlier in the book?
Which demon? Oh, Folklore.
Mhm.
Oh, with the chains? I can't say I thought of it like that. What kind of parallel? Maybe I didn't fully understand your question. Did
Oh, I
you?
just didn't know if there's anything that there's connections there or kind of what Karsa experiences in some ways related or if the idea of being chained and restricted for long periods of time, if there's some kind of parallel between the two characters. I don't know
Hmm.
of anything, but I didn't know if I missed something there.
Hmm. I I
I mean,
can't. Sorry. Go ahead, Shannon.
no, I mean, I got nothing. Except for just you know, he ran across her and freed her, and so like there's he's involved. So I think and I think maybe that's significant. Um, yeah, one of the first things he runs across when after he leaves his village is this trapped
Yeah.
uh for what do they call her, a fork rail or something,
Forcasell, I think they call her.
fork sail, and he frees her. He or well, does he? No, he doesn't free her. The other two do, right? So
He
and then right
participates, I think. But they all
after it
three together lifted off together.
takes
Yeah.
all three, and then yeah, and then he gets to Silver Lake and gets captured, and then gets captured again, and like you pointed out, chapter 3 is him tied up for half the chapter.
Yeah. And
Um,
he does think to himself about the fact that the demon had scratched a hole in that stone the size
mhm,
of her body. So I don't know. I wondered if he drew some strength from it and
Hmm.
from knowing that there are much, much worse
yeah.
uh, situations that he could be captured in.
I guess I was wondering. I guess I wondered if that act of goodwill, if that somehow benefited him later. But
Mm.
I was just curious about that. If there's any connection
No,
there between what he experiences or not.
I think the only connection I can kind of see is just this theme of being chained, of being captured,
Yeah.
because that does seem to play into him a lot.
Yeah.
But I hadn't made that connection. Good catch, Steve.
So what did you think before we move on to chapter 4, which honestly I don't know that there's too much to talk about. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. The keeper was in chapter 4, not chapter 3. Sorry about that. But um what did you think of when Urgal declared, "You're no longer my chosen one. I'm going to find someone else because you're not bringing me enough bodies. You're thinking too much. you're uh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. His last champion was his granddad, who was just terrible.
Hmm.
So, like, I mean, I'd be pretty happy with Karsa being at least, capable of doing things.
Oh yeah, I missed that part where the granddad was maybe their previous champion, and he
Mhm.
Yeah,
kind
because
of like
they talk about him
failed
at the
maybe.
beginning of the book and how he
Yeah.
was a failure.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That makes
And I
sense.
think at that point we didn't really know what they were talking about.
That's true. So they need something from this guy, and
Yeah,
at
because
least
because they had said also at that point that if Karsa doesn't work out, they were going to move on to Daelus's child
Right.
was going to be their next champion.
Mm-hmm. So at least they need lots of blood. They need him to keep killing without thought, which he's failing at right now, apparently, because he's stopping to think and often deciding not to kill.
Yeah, I don't know. What are they after? I don't know.
Yeah. So who knows? Who knows? So um so Silgar and Co, who they keep, I think, how many times does Karsa get captured overall in in this section? First by the, I guess, first by the slave keepers, then by the
Mhm.
Malazans,
Mhm.
then by Silgar again.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's 3 times. Is that it? That that feels like less than it
Yeah.
was.
Just because he spent so long tied up that second time.
Yeah, yeah. The second time was really long, but yeah. So Torvald saves him because he knows some people who are working with the Graal, and they get captured together, and then Karsa gets captured by himself, right? And he thinks for a while that Torvald is dead, but
Mhm.
fortunately he's not. He found some relatives who don't
Well,
dislike him.
Torvald summoned the Grawl
Mm-hmm.
because he realized, hey, these guys are acting like they're clearly scared of somebody around us. I mean,
Yes.
we found out, like, I think we learned that Torvald's a lot even smarter than maybe we even thought he was. Because yeah, he picked up on that real fast, exactly what's going on with these guys.
Yeah.
And then he tricked them and revealed their location, and the Grawl warriors came in and pretty much wiped out all of whoever, I forget who they were, that Silgar had teamed up with.
Yeah. So he did a clever thing and then helped Karsa. This was also the chapter in which I think they get into that dialogue about empire and the rebellion, that this is says, well, first there's a quote about Darujistan: walk down any street in any district and everyone you speak to will have a different opinion no matter what the subject, even the possibility of being conquered by the Malazans. So yeah, he goes on to compare what Darujistan will do to the Malazans, to what the shark did to Borug. Is that his name? One of the slave drivers.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so before the Graal thing, they had this conversation about the Malazan Empire and Karsa finally realizing that words are a subtle thing, that what he was reacting to before, whatever prompted him to just pull his sword out and kill, was actually the underlying meaning in the things people were saying to him, which he never processed, but just knew that it was something that bothered him, and he always reacted to that by killing. But now he's stopping to think, which Urugal is not particularly pleased about. What else from these chapters? I think we're kind of done. Do you guys
Yeah, I
have
think
quotes?
just chapter 4 was kind of when Karsa's his ideals start to change from. I think he starts to realize his ignorance, and he starts to. You see his development in chapter 4. I think a little bit.
Yeah. I think a lot of it starts happening in chapter 3, but chapter 4 is
Mhm.
sort of like the grand conclusion of it all.
Yeah.
Um, and he finds, I guess the big thing that happens in chapter 4, is he's revealed to be the Toblakai that we met in book 2. which
Hmm.
was very interesting. It blew my mind the first time I read this book.
Ditto.
Yeah. It's like this completely unrelated character, some tall guy.
Some
And
tall
it
guy.
turns out, yeah, because you would never make that connection between him and the guy who just
Yeah.
did what Leoman told him to in book
Yep.
2.
Until Leoman shows up here, and then and that's when you start to realize, oh, this got to be that guy.
Yeah. The fan. And even then I was like, maybe a similarly tall guy. But we had the clues all along. He was collecting trophies. Toblakai famously was wearing a belt of ears or something. And these Tablor, they've been collecting trophies from the beginning. Everyone they kill, they collect a part of the body from. I guess Karsa did ears.
Nice.
Yeah.
What
So
are both of your thoughts on how kind of Erikson plays with the barbarian trope with Karsa in this book, or up to this point anyway?
I don't think I know enough to say. I haven't. The only other barbarian trope thing I've read is Pratchett's take with Cohen the Barbarian, who is a parody of Conan the Barbarian. I think it. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because I think typically, um, Conan's kind of the archetype,
Yeah.
and you have this noble barbarian uh, that kind of rolls out of that, and I think back in Memories of Ice with the what were they called? The barbarians that were in that book.
Memories of Ice. The Mot Irregulars. No.
No,
Bargast.
the Barghast. I think the
Barghast.
Barghast kind of were like more like Conan. Like they were portrayed better in a better light. Like these guys are, but the Teblor and Karsa, we see the darker side of it. You know how they're infighting, they're brutal, you know, and yeah, I think that's what Steve was trying to do with it, was show the darker side of this kind of, it's not just glamorized.
Yeah, I think it also kind of explores the idea that their worldview is very narrow, and once they venture out
Mhm.
and they have to resolve problems without swinging a sword. They're out of their depth and they uncomfortable for them because everything is kill the other thing that's bothering you,
Yeah.
and they have to. Arsa has to evolve quite a bit to
hmm
survive.
Yeah, and it's not just that too. I mean, their knowledge is limited. They
Right.
don't know. Like Carsa before he came down, just the lowlanders down there, the children. He
Yeah.
didn't actually know anything about them. Um, and so we've been with him as he's been learning. So, but yeah, I think Carsa's a very obvious play off of Conan. All the way down to the grandfather that traveled. I mean, that's straight out of Conan. Um, but yeah, but just kind of twisted a little bit and made a little different.
Yeah, I think I think he sees the lowlanders as almost inhuman. He doesn't really see them as people, but once he's put in a position where he has to depend on other people to survive, he's almost forced to see different perspectives. So I think it's really interesting that we meet Karsa and he's one thing and he's evolving. It's slow, but
hmm
it's really fun to see that trope being played with.
Well, I would argue at the beginning of this, he didn't even see his own people as people, or at least certainly
True.
women.
Yeah.
I mean, he just assumed Dallas would be his. He just, that first village he came across, he killed the men and then just took the women.
It's true. Yeah, it makes you. I've read this book, so I won't give any spoilers. But it is interesting to see his journey from throughout the book.
Yeah. Definitely. And
Yep.
he meets out appropriate punishment, I think, in certain cases. Well, like Silgar, he chops his hands and legs off. Um, but
Yes.
it was also interesting, I guess, briefly, the warren that they came through. It was interesting that the opening was at the bottom, so the oar got cut off, as did the guy Borug's legs. Um, their transition, you would expect like the sides to be choppy, but instead it was the bottom, which was really lucky for Karsa, given how tall he was. Um, but I did find that quote about darkness. The when Torvald is covering the eyes of the Tistandi because he can't bear the fact that they're tracking everything they do. Uh, he says darkness would better suit them, all things considered. And to which Karsa asks, which would you prefer, the ability to see things around you or darkness? And Nom goes on to point out that these are Tistandi and they worship darkness. And he says, darkness, a place where one is left blind, a strange thing to worship. To which Toval Nom says, perhaps the most realistic worship of all. How many of us bow before a god in the desperate hope that we can somehow shape our fate? Praying to that familiar face pushes away our terror of the unknown being the future. Who knows? Maybe these Tistandi are the only ones among us all who see the truth being oblivion. Without spoiling too much, that reminds me of some discussions we used to have, I think, when reading the Second Apocalypse. Was it?
Does
This
sound
has
familiar,
a very
yeah.
familiar quality to it.
Mhm.
But yeah, worshipping the unknown or oblivion is interesting, I think.
And it is a change from the previous books to have such a kind of singular focus on one character after the first 3 books. So,
Yeah, it's nice.
yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it because we're switching right back up, and I'm honestly excited.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, it was. I can't say that I enjoyed it. I think when we have the, I mean, I did enjoy it. I'm saying I don't know if I enjoyed it more than the other way that he writes, because there's always characters and situations that I appreciate and enjoy, whereas like 300 pages of one guy, especially a guy who I'm not fond of and took a while to like even as a character. I think there's a case to be made for like, yeah, I didn't enjoy that as much as I do the other style. That's not to say I didn't enjoy this. It's just it was different, and I think I prefer the other way. I'm excited
Yeah.
for Cold Iron and some familiar characters to be back.
Yeah, I was gonna say we start book 2, Cold Iron, which if it's one of those if you know, you know.
Yes, if you know, you know.
That those 2 words get me so excited.
Yes, exactly. So much nostalgia, just those two.
Yeah, I hope that quote is next chapter. I have no idea where that actually.
Yeah,
where-
interesting.
It's in this book somewhere.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
I'm also excited for us to meet Strings. Um, that's all. Cool. So we'll see everybody back with chapters 5, 6, and 7 next week. Uh, any quotes or final thoughts before we wrap up?
I just want to mention that we do have threads in the forum for each section. So if you are wanting to mention quotes or thoughts on any section that we read, feel free to drop by and post on the threads.
Yep. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.